girl Trish M, yeah. Fab Talk with your girl Trish M. Real talk, real conversation. Fab Talk with your girl Trish M. Ooh, Fab Talk with your girl Trish M. Ooh, Fab Talk with your girl Trish M. She'll give you the word, the way, and the truth. Welcome to the Fab Talk with Trish M podcast.
Hey. Welcome, good people. Happy fabulous day to you. Y'all know what time it is. It is time for the Fab Talk with Trish M podcast. Thank y'all so much for tuning in with me live. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I see y'all. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. You know I'm Fab Talk with Tricia. I give you the word, the way, and the truth, the real deal, Holyfield. Food for your soul that's going to make you whole. And we can't forget about the Trish M Boutique, where I give you the new that's in the boo-boo, the good that is in the hood. Come on, somebody. I am super excited, y'all. I'm on a high. We just came off of our Circle of Fabulous Women Empowerment Summit, and boy, did we have time. We had time, okay? And so I'm super excited to be back. Did we go live last week? I don't think we went live last week. If we did, I can't recall because my week was so slammed. But we are here today. My girl Tamika's out today. I'm here ready to give you some stuff, okay, that the Lord has given me. But before we tap into it, please take a minute, share the broadcast, start a watch party. Tell your girl from around the world that Trish M is live. Tell your brother from another mother to tune in, okay? Because it is on and it's popping. Well, I gotta get me a little sip. Y'all know this. We got the fabulous free tumblers in the boutique. Y'all, these things are so amazing. And I love putting my little lemon water in here daily. So if you have not gotten one of these, the Bling Queens, I'm telling you, you're missing out. So check it out at shoptrishim.com. Next thing that I have on, this this is a new arrival, y'all. Y'all have seen the Ripped and Fabulous tunics in the boutique. Well, listen, your girl is rocking the Ripped and Fabulous duster, kimono, whatever you want to call it. All right. I love this. All I did was put a cute little bodysuit on to go with it. Got some cute little heels. I added the wires cross earrings to give it a little bit of flair, still keeping with the color scheme. Got my little booty heels on, and your girl is doing it. All right. Yes. If you like this look, love this look, and you want to rock out in it, you know what to do. Check us out at shoptrishm.com. That's shoptrishm.com. You can use code FAB10 to get 10% off the look of the day, and even our fabulously free tumblers that's going to keep your drinks hot or cold. Okay, we got you. So check them out, y'all. All right, so let's get into it, y'all. Let's get into it. I am so excited. God is really doing something in us. God is really taking us to another level in getting closer to Him, overcoming our fears, our doubts, our insecurities, helping us to be stronger, wiser, make better decisions, do things all for His glory. And so I don't know if you could feel that in the atmosphere. I feel it, the pull and the tug to be more, to do more, to become more, to live better. I'm telling you, God is up to something big. And you know that every week I give you our podcast based on a Trish M inspirational quote from the previous week. And boy, do I have a quote for you today. Here's the quote that I posted last week on my Facebook page, Trish M, and my Instagram. It said, "You can't walk in freedom with old chains of fear. Hashtag let God handle it." Now, this is going to be eye-opening because sometimes we don't realize that we have old chains of fear hanging on us. Sometimes we don't realize when we're trying to handle things for God. Sometimes we don't realize when we think that we have it figured out, when we have not given God the opportunity to work it out. Sometimes we just don't even realize it. And God has to send someone around the way, like your girl, to whisper in your ear about freedom, to talk to you about chains, to help you get your mind right, whatever it is, okay? And so, freedom, one of the things that we have to understand is that freedom isn't just about what God has removed from you, it's about what you're willing to release. I got to say that again. Freedom is not just about what God has removed from you, it's also about what you're willing to release, what you're willing to let go of, what you're willing to sacrifice, what you're willing to say, God, I give this to you because, honey, that's just the Trish M's way of saying, because, honey, listen, Linda, sometimes freedom is about just your willingness to just let go. So many people pray for freedom while still dragging the very chains that Jesus already broke from us. So fear is one of the heaviest chains because it often disguises itself as wisdom, caution, humility. Are you just being real, right? Us saying things like that, I'm just being real, we could be masking our fears. So we have to ask ourselves in a situation like that when we hear ourselves rehearsing something that we've said a lot of times. You have to ask yourself, am I being led by God or am I being led by fear? So our key scripture for this whole podcast is one that everybody knows. Second Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. But we have to be able to identify the chains of fear. And so on this podcast, I'm going to talk to you about the chains of fear that you very well may not even recognize that are there. Okay, so let's talk about it. What are old chains? First off, let's talk about old chains. Old chains are fears that have become a part of your identity. Old chains, fears that have become a part of your identity, so much so that you find identity in that, and you don't even realize that it's a chain that has been wrapped around your mind, your neck, your feet, your heart. It's an old chain, but for some reason we have found identity in that old chain. So what are we talking about? You no longer question the chains. You actually found a way to live around the chains. You don't question the chains anymore because you've accepted that these are chains and they are part of my life and they're a part of who I am. And so I don't really question the chains. I just live around those chains. So today's podcast is really going to give you a lot of Selah moments. Let me think about that kind of moment. So instead of saying I have fear, we began saying things like, well, that's just who I am. That's just who you are because you have an old chain that has kept you bound, and it has created a person of you that is really a person that's trying to figure out your fear. We don't understand that that is really bondage. When we say that's just who I am, you became that way because of something that happened to you. So, what is it that we try to shield, or what is it that we try to cover? What is it that we try to hide when we say, well, that's just who I am? Because what we don't realize is that that could very well be an old chain of bondage that we haven't quite figured out yet. But don't worry, we're going to talk about these chains today. So I'm going to help y'all get your whole life, okay? Say whole life. Whole life. All right. So the first chain that I want to talk about is the chain of fear of failure. And this is one that a lot of us have had and may continue to have. The chain that's wrapped around us is the chain that's a fear of failure, a fear of what if it doesn't work? What if I waste all my money and don't prosper? What if I start this or do this and nothing happens, or nobody shows up, or nobody supports? And so there is this fear of failure. And that's a chain that we don't even realize that's there. But our job today is that we are going to identify those chains so that we can be better. So this sounds like what I just said. What if it doesn't work? What if nobody supports? What if nobody shows up? What if I fail publicly? They see that I may not know what I'm doing after all. What if I embarrass myself because I'm acting like I know something that I may not know? And so these are chains that we call chains of fear of failure. And so fear convinces you that failure is final. But God says failure is only preparation. And here's the thing about, I'll go back to me, because y'all may not find this in you, but I'll be transparent about me. Y'all know my story of starting my business. Well, when I first started, I was gung-ho. Yeah, make it work, let's go. And then the first year there was no money, and so instead of staying in that business, I tried to escape that business. But I was telling God, I'll do this, I'll still do it on the side, because what was happening was I was afraid of failure. I was afraid that I was going to have another year like the year I just came out of. And so I felt like I had to help God out because I was afraid of failing again. Sometimes we don't realize that that is a chain that the enemy has draped around us for the simple purpose of not being obedient to God. So fear of failure is a huge thing when we're trying to go to another level, because one thing that I know about God never he never produces comfortability when he's trying to stretch and promote. Stretching and promotion always brings discomfort, but fear of failure will say, like me, well, I don't want to have a year like I had this year. And so I'm gonna help God out by doing this part-time instead of full-time, because I'm afraid of failure. Now, I did not say that. I did not say those particular words. I'm afraid of failure. I was afraid of failure, so much so that I tried to help God out. Have you ever found yourself where God is telling you to try something, do something, put your hands on something, start something new, do something different, move in a different location, change churches, whatever it is, and then you have an excuse in your heart and you say, well, I would, but I mean, I'll go visit. Or I might try to do this a little bit at a time. It's like, you're afraid of failure, so you can't give God the 110 that he's asking of you. You'll give him a certain percentage of it because you're afraid that if I go all out, I go all in, something might not work out. And if I fail, then what am I going to tell my spouse? What am I going to tell my family? What am I going to tell my boss or my people? Like you got to understand that this is a chain that the enemy wraps around our minds, our hearts, our feet, our hands, so that we can miss God. Fear of failure is of the enemy. We had the perfect example. I gave you me, but biblically, Moses was that. He believed he wasn't qualified. Like God could give us something, and we may disqualify ourselves because we don't see all the resources. We don't see all the monies. We don't see all the people. And so what we'll do is we'll begin to disqualify ourselves because we see a lack, or because we see because it's something that we don't typically do. See, God asked Moses to do something he didn't typically do. Moses was not that guy that just walked up to Pharaoh and be like, yo, what's up? What's up? Let's talk today. That wasn't his thing. And so God asked Moses to do something he typically doesn't do. And mind you, that's typically how God works. He's not going to keep you in comfortability land. He's going to ask you to do something that you typically don't do or haven't done. And so there is what immediately came upon Moses was a fear of failure. Like, I can't talk, I stutter. Like, what if I get in front of Pharaoh and don't have the words to say? What if I get in front of Pharaoh and stuff just kind of come out and it come out wrong? So Moses had this chain wrapped around his heart called the chain of fear of failure. And he gave him something like, I can't speak. I'm not going to be good enough. I've never done this before. See, one thing that I love about God, when God was asking Moses to do something he typically doesn't do, God never argued about Moses's weaknesses. He simply reminded Moses of his presence. like God is not gonna want to sit and talk to you. You know what, you're right. You don't have all the money. You know what, you're right. You don't have a lot of Facebook following or supporters, or you know what, you're right. You might not have this or that. God is not going to sit and have a conversation with us about the have-nots. God is going to remind you who is the haver of all, who has everything, access to everything. And so he didn't get into a conversation with Moses. He simply said this. He reminded Moses of his presence. So when we look in Exodus 4:10-12, Moses said to the Lord, "Pardon your servant, Lord. I've never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you spoke it to me." As a matter of fact, he said, "I'm slow of speech and tongue." God didn't say, "You know what? Let's park right there and let's talk about that." God is not going to do that with us either. This is what God will do when he gives us a task. Just as he did unto Moses, he'll do the very same thing as unto us. So the Lord now responds in verse 11. The Lord said to him, "Who gave human beings their mouths? I'm the creator of your mouth. I know what your mouth can and can't do." So this is the Lord's response. Who gave human beings their mouths? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go. I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. So God is not having a conversation about the have-nots. He's not going to have a conversation about why you should be a little scared. He's going to remind you of who he is and what he's called you to do. God is going to remind you that the calling on your life is not going to change just because you got a fear of failure hanging over your head. Just because you feel a little anxious about something, just because you're a little nervous about something. God doesn't want to talk about your fears. He wants to talk about the being that can help you overcome your fears, which is him. He says, "Have I not called you?" He said, "Now go and I will help you speak and teach you what to say." At one point in the scripture, he also said, "I'm going to allow Aaron to go with you and help you." But in this part, he says, "I will help you speak and will teach you what to say." And we realize that Aaron never spoke to Pharaoh. Why? Because God did what he said he would do. He literally went in to help Moses speak, and he literally went in and told Moses what to say each and every time. So with that, Moses couldn't help but be successful. But he had to first realize that the fear of failure was extremely strong on his life, so much so that it was about to take him out of the call that God had placed. And so we have to be very, very careful with that. So what are some signs that you're carrying this chain? You overthink every decision. That's the first thing. Your fear of failure, that chain that's on you, a sign that you have a fear of failure on your life is that you overthink every decision, or almost every decision, or a lot of decisions, or you do too much overthinking, period. That's because you have a fear of failure hanging over your life. Okay. And so the second sign is delay obedience. God told you to do something, but you got to think about it. You need more confirmations. You you got to sit on it for a year. You got to sit on it for 5 years, and you still waiting on a word from God, and you still ain't did the word from 3 years ago. There is a fear of failure that's hanging over your head that you've not acknowledged. So if you have delayed obedience to what God had said, then that's a sign. You start something, but you never finish it. That's another sign. Okay. You start something, but you don't finish it, and you get back to it whenever you feel like getting back to it. There is a slight fear of failure that could be hanging over your head. So check yourself. And you stay in comfortable places. You like being comfortable. You like being comfortable. Even though you know God said do something, you'll sit on it for another year if you could, because you like comfortability and you don't like stretching. A lot of people sometimes will mislead stretching, misidentify stretching as the devil because you're uncomfortable. And if you was comfortable, if it was God, you will have peace. No, no, no. God typically brings discomfort in the midst of what he's telling you. Just like with Moses, he said, I need you to speak to Pharaoh. Well, that was something Moses had never done before. And so it challenged him, and he wasn't comfortable with that challenge. The second chain that you have to, so we just talked about the first chain. The first chain is the fear of failure. The second chain that we need to break, we first need to identify so we can break, is the chain of fear of rejection. There's a fear of rejection that could be hovering over your life that is producing a chain. One of the strongest chains is the fear of rejection. You obey people, or you instead of obeying God. Questions you constantly ask: will they approve? Will they understand? Will they support? Will they like it? Fear of rejection creates people pleasers. The scripture, Proverbs 29:25 says, fear of man will prove to be a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord is kept safe. Notice it doesn't say fear of man is uncomfortable. It says it's a snare, meaning that it's a trap. It will keep you in a position that God never intended for you to be. Now, I'm not saying you can't honor and obey people and all of that, and you want to stay in alignment with things, but there are times where I mentor and coach women all the time, and they won't do anything because they don't think their parents will approve, or their family members might say something. That's a people pleasing spirit, and that comes from a fear of rejection. You're afraid that it's not, then it'll never be good enough for them, and so that worries you a little bit because you want to please, and you put the name, whomever it is. So the fear of rejection is another chain, is the second chain. The third chain that we have to identify and break is the chain where is the fear of the unknown. One thing that we have to understand is God is in the unknown. We serve an unknown God. Just when we think we figured God out, he will reveal parts of himself that we would not have known unless he revealed it. And so God will give us unknown things, unknown futures and different things and directions, because he's an unknown God. And the unknown God means that I'm going to give you things to do. You're not going to know what's on the other side of that. All you need to know is to trust me. And if you trust me, I will reveal that which is unknown to you and make it known so that it can be a blessing to your life. And so you have to understand that an unknown God who reveals himself to us in parts, we would never know the fullness of who God is, because he is infinite in power and presence. And all this it surpasses all our understanding, right? And so it's not a secret that he will give us, challenge us to do unknown things, because that's a part of who he is. So many people aren't afraid of God's plan. They're afraid that they can't control God's plan. My God. Hey, that was me, honey. That was me. Lord, I need to know. I know you told Abraham to go and you'll tell him along the way. But if you tell Trish that, can you tell me the exact stopping points, who I'm going to meet along the way? Is there somebody there going to be there to bless me? And so, some of us want to know details, especially women. We need details. Like our husbands be like, hey, it's a surprise. Where's we going? Do I need certain clothes? What type do I need? A swim? What do I? And so we got all questions, right? Because we have a fear of the unknown and we want to make sure we're prepared. So people aren't necessarily afraid of God's plan. They're just afraid they can't control God's plan. They want God to show them all 2,500 steps. God, I get it, but can you show me all the steps that's involved in where we going? Okay. And so God will look at us and say, take step one. And faith walkers always understands that he unveils himself after the first step. He'll unveil another one. And we know that through Abraham. And God said, leave. He didn't tell Abraham everything. He simply said, go. And Abraham believed God. He trusted God. And it was credited to him as righteousness. Now I'm just surprised because I didn't hear about Sarah having a whole lot to say. Be like, bro, you want me to leave my family, leave everything we know, and you want to take us to somewhere where you don't know? Honey, where are the Sarahs of today? If your husband walked in the house and said, baby, we finna leave this house and we just finna go somewhere. We finna start walking. I don't know where we going. But God just said, get all your stuff, leave the house, and let's just go. Oh, okay, we just gonna go. We just gonna pack up our stuff and start walking up the street, driving up the street, and we don't know where we going. So a lot of times it's like we just want to control God's plan, and letting go and letting God truly shows obedience. So how many of you know that we all can be better in that? Not just women, because men knows it too. Men knows it too. It ain't just us. So we're going to pray for all of us because all of us need to get over the fear of the unknown. All right. The fourth chain is the fear from past pain. Fear from past pain. Past hurts create future hesitations. Yeah, that part. Past hurts create future hesitations. Just ask a woman who's been in a bad relationship. Now she's got a future hesitation about being in another one. Why? Because of past hurt, right? Just as a person who started a business and it failed, they got a past hurt from that failure, and now they're not quick to start another one. They rather go work in corporate and be okay in corporate. So past hurts create future hesitations. Help us, Lord. So examples would be you trusted before, you loved before, you served before at a church or a ministry, and then you got hurt, and now you hesitant about coming to another ministry and serving and allowing God to be God. Well, because the last church hurt you, and really it wasn't the church, it was people within the church that did something stupid, because the church as a whole, right? The church as a whole did not hurt you. People within the church, within the body, hurt you, but the whole church is getting blamed for a certain group of people. So that past hurt is hindering you is hindering you and giving you future hesitations with another church, and that's not fair. All right. So the enemy wants one painful season to become a permanent prison. Ooh, child. The enemy wants one painful season to become a permanent prison. You will give the enemy exactly what he wants. Fear, allowing fear to rule and reign your life, always gives the enemy exactly what he wants. So you have to be careful. The fifth chain that we want to talk about is fear of not being enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not educated enough. I'm too old to get married again. I'm too old to be in a relationship. I'm too old for this. Too young. I'm too broken. Fear attacks the identity because it attacks purpose, right? So when we allow this type of lingo to come up, we are allowing fear to attack our purpose. Because here's one thing that I know about the enemy. If the enemy can convince you you're not enough, you'll never attempt what God called you to do. If the enemy makes you think you're not enough, you'll never attempt what God told you to do. Scripture says in Ephesians 2:10, for we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. See, what we don't understand is God prepared in advance for us to make some major moves. But fear is always knocking at our door to stop those major moves from happening. So I want you to ask yourself, what is a major move that God has prepared for me in advance, but fear keeps knocking at my door and making me hesitate or second guess that major move that God, for real, is challenging me to walk into. And so you have to be careful with that. The sixth chain that can hinder purpose or hinder you being who you need to be It's the fear of losing control. I talked about control earlier, how we want to help God out because we want is like we it's not necessarily that we fear God's plan, but we fear that we can't control God's plan. Because if we had it our way, then the husband would have been here 5 years ago. If we had it our way, the money would have been in the bank account 10 years ago. If we had it our way, right? And so there's a fear of losing control. This one, it hides in church. It sounds spiritual. I just want to make sure. I need confirmation. I'll pray about it one more time. Sometimes that can be wisdom, but sometimes that can be fear wearing church clothes. Because you sound churchy. Let me pray about it. You sound churchy, religious. I think about it. I'm waiting on confirmation. You sound the part, but really that is religion manifesting its ugly head. Here's the thing we have to understand: is control and trust. Control and trust cannot occupy the same throne. I gotta say that again. Control and trust cannot operate or occupy the same throne. Either you're gonna trust God or not. But one thing is for sure, you can't control God. See, we want to control the outcomes of what God has for us instead of trusting the outcomes of what God has for us. And so this is one of the biggest mistakes of church people of what we're doing. We want control. We want to have the say. We want to be the one. The seventh chain is the fear of what people would think. We talked about this as early as a people pleasing. Some people are imprisoned by opinions that haven't even been spoken. Nobody said anything, right? But you think that they've said it, right? Why? Where is that coming from? Past trauma. You immediately think, oh, Pastor Trish ain't gonna like this. Why? Because somebody else rejected it, or whatever, or what is it? So you got to make sure that your focus is not there, but it's always on, well, what would God think if I said this? What would God think if I did this? The eighth chain is the chain of fear of success. So we talked about a fear of failure earlier, but there's also a fear, which is kind of, but there are some people that are scared that they may be successful at it. This surprises a lot of people, right? But it's so real. Some people aren't afraid of failing, they're afraid of succeeding. Why? Because succeeding means more responsibility, more visibility, more accountability, more spiritual warfare. So they sabotage what they pray for. Why? Because they know that if I'm successful at this, they're going to look for me to do more. They're going to look for me to be in position more. I don't know if I want to carry that weight because I can do it, but in order for me to be successful, these are the things that I have to do. I got to get up early. I got to be in meetings. I got to be in position when nobody else is in position. I got to be accountable to a team. And so people are afraid of success because they don't want the accountability. They would rather have a title without accountability. Believe me, I see that a lot in leadership and people. As a business owner, I see it as a pastor of a church. Like people would like the titles, but if the success of that title means that I have to show up, I have to be responsible, I have to then they'll lose that title because they can't be successful. And then you have people who want the title but have a hard time of being accountable. And so you have to ask yourself, if God is going to entitle me to a new position, then I have to make sure that I'm ready for the success. What's going to make that position successful? And that's me taking accountability. That's me taking responsibility. That's me showing up when nobody else will show up. I tell people, our team all the time, if nobody else comes to church, leaders should be the first ones in the building, and we'll preach to a whole leadership team. Why? Because leaders lead. Leaders are in position. leaders have accountability and responsibility. You see, there's a huge distinguishment in the Bible with Jesus. The disciples were there when nobody else was around. But the people came, the crowd. There's a distinguishment between the crowd and the disciples. The crowd just came when they was hungry and they could go away. But the disciples stayed in position because it was a lifestyle for them. And they had to always be in position even when the crowd wasn't there. And so they understood that leadership came with responsibility and accountability. And in order to be successful at that, they had to show up even when the crowd didn't. And so some people could be dynamic leaders. They just don't want the responsibility that comes with that, because that is what's going to make them successful or not. So those are the different types of change. So how do you identify old chains? You got to ask yourself these questions. What opportunities have I repeatedly avoided? What prayers have I delayed because of fear? What excuse do I most often say? Later, maybe, someday, I'm not ready. It's not my season. I'm going to sit down this season. I'm going to do this season. You know, we can sound real churchy and godly with these excuses. Sometimes I'm not real ready really means I'm afraid. Sometimes it's not my season means I'm afraid. Sometimes I'm going to wait till next season means I'm afraid. There's a little bit of fear that could be hanging there. What dream keeps resurfacing? Meaning, what is God continuing to put in your thoughts? Play over and over again. It's not going anywhere, right? These are old chains. God keeps bringing it back because he never withdrew the assignment. We have to understand that. God will continue to bring it back because he never took away the assignment. You did. Why? Because of fear. What do I constantly need assurance about? Fear constantly asks, what if God? But faith says, what if God? And fills in the blank. So fear is going to leave you a lot of clues, guys. Fear says, I can't. What if I'm not enough? It's not my season. I'm going to wait. I need more confirmation. I don't think I can. But faith says, God said, God got me. God with me. God has covered me. God has gone before me. I'm going to obey. I'm going to do what God said do, regardless if I feel like it or not. See, that's how you talk faith. But fear will make up all kinds of excuses and make it sound so churchy, honey. Be like, oh, the Spirit of the Lord that told me he didn't change his mind. And, oh, really? Because my Bible says that God is not a man that he should lie, nor the son of man that he should repent. When he speaks, he acts. And when he makes a promise, he fulfills it. So you're telling me that God changed his mind because you scared? That's so funny. Oh, that's so funny, Lord. Help us, Lord. Help us, Lord. I was that person. So I ain't talking about y'all. I was that. I tell y'all all my little stuff. I was that person too. Like, God just want me to do this part-time. Well, God say that? Or did you say that? Because you ain't making no money. Oh, okay. We just wanted clarity, Trish. Oh, okay. We ain't here. Just my thoughts. So the powerful thought, chains don't always rattle. Sometimes they come so familiar that you stop hearing them. They don't always rattle, chains. Sometimes they become so familiar that you stop hearing them. And you don't even see chains no more. You just see it as a part of who you are, right? Freedom begins the moment you recognize what you've been carrying. You have to recognize you've been carrying a load that needs to be dropped off at the feet of Jesus. Selah. Because why? Jesus already broke the chains. Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand. Notice God's answer to fear. Not I'll explain everything. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say I'll remove every obstacle. His answer for fear is I am with you. Plain and simple. He says, so do not fear, for I am with you. His presence has to be greater than our biggest fears. Wow. So I'm getting ready to close this thing out. If fear wasn't holding the chains, what would you finally do? Like after hearing me talk today, you recognize there may be a little bit of fear there. So if fear wasn't holding the chain, what would you finally do? The greatest prison isn't the one with locked doors. It's the one where the door is already open, but fear convinces you to stay right there. God didn't open the door. He didn't send you the people. He didn't send you the resource or sent you this or that. God did it. The door is open, but the biggest fear is you convince yourself to sit right here because it's more comfortable than going out there. So Jesus has already unlocked the door. Your next step is to walk out in faith and let God handle what you can't. Okay, that's a Selah moment. Listen, I pray that was a blessing to you. I pray that you got something out of today's podcast. If you're late coming in, go back and watch the replay. I promise you to bless your soul. It'll help us identify ways that the enemy is trying to keep us stuck on stupid, keeping us stuck in the same old, when God is trying to push us into the deep. God is trying to push us into something far greater than we can ever imagine. But we simply have to let go, let God, trust the journey, trust God, and stop trying to control God and control how God moves. We got to stop that. All right. So, yeah, that's it. That's the podcast. Listen, I'll be back on next week, same place, same time, with another phenomenal episode of Fab Talk with your girl, Trish M. All right, y'all. I love y'all. Have a blessed, wonderful, and fabulous day. And I will see you guys on next week. God bless. Thanks for tuning in to Fab Talk with Trish M. Do your girl a favor. Share this broadcast on all your social media platforms. Invite a friend to tune in. Help this podcast reach the nation. We all need Jesus, y'all. You sharing this broadcast helps me to reach the masses. If I'm blessing you, then bless your girl back. Share the broadcast. Give me a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. I got work to do for the King, and I need your help. I appreciate you tuning in to this segment. I'm looking forward to rocking with you on the next episode of Fab Talk with your girl, Trish M.